So I hit OK. All right, Pete. Great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a wonderful interview today. A general discussion, of course, but we're with a New York broadcasting legend, Peter Schwartz, who we go way back, Peter. You started out from when you talk about the bottom up, from the obscure days on little-known AM stations to CBS Sports, Infinity Sports, and The Beacon, WFAN. So you have lots going on. I know you have a huge, hectic schedule. Appreciate the little time block that you're giving us today. We go way back to like the mid-'90s when you and I met, and you were just pretty much getting started out then, right? Was that around timing, right around the mid-'90s?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Good to catch up with you. But my first job out of college was sports phone in 1989.
Okay.
Covering the Islanders was for sports phone. And excuse me one second. A little bit of a scratchy throat today. Sorry about that. And then I went from there, WGBB, a whole bunch of other places, and on to ESPN radio. And now I'm here actually in the studios at WFAN talking to you today. And, listen, it's like a menu at a Chinese restaurant. It's a long list of things that I've done, in my life that I'm very fortunate. And obviously, we'll get to it at some point. But the new gig that I'm very excited about that just launched a little while ago. So, but the Islanders throughout the whole thing have been a huge part of it at various platforms and starting my own Islanders podcast. So it's been a fun ride for more than 3 decades. No question about it.
Fantastic. And I tell you, and you're as big of a radio personality as you have become, and I'm not just saying this, you're just as big as far as a great guy. You're an awesome guy. I'm glad that we got to become friends. To know that you're now, for a while now, we're living in the same community and we bumped into each other a few times over the years. It's been great.
I think it's great, Steve, that all of our kids went to MacArthur High School. My younger son is still going there, Jared, and Bradley graduated. He's playing football at WestCon. And we also have that connection to my alma mater, Buffalo State College, because your son played football there as well. So we met a long time ago, and our lives have these common denominators to it.
Yes, absolutely. And the big one for today we'll talk about is the Islanders. So got a little bit of trip down memory lane with you about your career here. And tell us, as you separate Peter Schwartz, the sportscaster, to Peter Schwartz, the Islander fan. I know you're just as big a fan as any of us. And, Long Island guy, you grew up not far from the Coliseum. You're still living on the island, obviously. So take us back. Where and when did your love for the Islanders begin? And let's just start it there and kind of take us, in a little history clip from where you became an Islander fan to kind of current times.
Well, my love for the Islanders actually started when I lived in Queens. So I grew up in Forest Hills with my family until I was 12 years old. So growing up in Queens in the late 70s, my family wasn't really that into hockey. My dad, and my uncle would go to, Ranger games here and there back in the day. But my father never really developed an affection for hockey at all. He was more of a baseball and a football, even a basketball guy. But I started to follow hockey watching the Islanders on Channel 9.
Yeah.
We didn't have cable in Forest Hills. It was Channel 9 had all the local teams basically. So you watched the Islander games and Ranger games and Knick games and all that stuff. I just remember one night, looking for something to watch on TV, and an Islander game popped up on Channel 9, and obviously it was an away game, so they were wearing, back then, the Blues.
Exactly.
Blue jerseys. And I just, for whatever reason, Steve, I don't know what it was. It wasn't any player. It wasn't anything about the game. I gravitated to the uniform. For some reason, the uniform stuck out at me. And again, it wasn't like I had to follow in my father's footsteps or anything like that. kind of fell in love with the Islander colors and started, watching games on television. And finally, January of 78, it's like the second year that I was watching Islanders hockey. I asked my dad, can we drive out to Long Island and go to a game? And we did. January 7th, 1978, Islanders and the Cleveland Barons was my first Islander game. Now, you have to remember, aside from, and Steve, you're a longtime Islander fan, you'll remember this. There was only one time I ever watched a game in the Coliseum live on TV at home in Forest Hill. The 77 playoff series problem at Chicago Stadium, there was a concert booked, and they couldn't play all of their home games at Chicago Stadium. So there's an article in the New York Times you can find online how Bill Torrey really stuck it to the black box.
I remember that. That's such a great trivia question. Wow.
Yeah. So the Blackhawks wanted a specific home game for them played at a neutral site, and Bill Torrey went to the NHL and said, no, the rules say if you can't host a game, then the game shifts to the other team. So the Islanders then, went to the league and said, we will host that game. Actually, it was a Blackhawks home game that was played at Nassau Coliseum. And because it was an away game, the game had to be on Channel 9. And I remember Tim Ryan and George Michael was the Islander broadcast team on Channel 9.
Absolutely.
And Steve, I can't remember what I had for breakfast or lunch a couple of days ago, but for some reason I remember this. I remember Tim Ryan opening the broadcast saying, I know we're on Channel 9 and we're at the Coliseum, but this is an Islanders away game, so that's why we're on Channel 9. And that was the only time I ever got a glimpse of the Coliseum on television until my dad took me to that Islander game against the Barons on January 7th, 1978. They won 5-3. And I remember walking in the building, and we walked, in one of the gateway areas. And if you remember that scene in City Slickers where Billy Crystal, describes the first time he ever saw Yankee Stadium in color. He would all games on TV.
Right.
And I felt the same way. Like I had only seen the Coliseum on TV the one time, maybe a couple of clips on the news. But I remember walking in the building that night and thinking, this is the most awesome thing I've ever seen in my life. And that was it. I mean, I was already an Islander fan, and I felt like I was the only Islander fan at school because everybody else was Ranger fans. But once I walked into the Coliseum that night, that was it for me. I said, there's no turning back. This is my team. And we would wind up going to, obviously, a bunch of games growing up as a kid. And then once we moved, I don't know, Steve, if you know this about me, but we moved from Forest Hills to East Meadow in November of 1979. Just in time.
Just in time, bro. Perfect timing. And I know your feeling as far as that walking into the arena stuff, even a ballpark, but with a hockey arena, the sounds, the sights, the smells, everything coming together, the sounds of the fans as the place gets a little bit more full. When you're a little kid, like when I was a kid, they built the Coliseum. I lived basically down the block, no lie. And we used to get into games all the times as kids. Either we snuck in or because they weren't all that very good at the time, or we got tickets from guys who were just getting rid of them. There's a couple of suits would walk in. We'd say, hey, can we have a ticket? And we'd get in. And as a young guy at 10, 11 years old going to these games, I'm right with you with that. You just get drawn in, and there's no going back.
And it's like, again, you have to pardon me with the sore throat. I'm just grabbing a cough drop, Steve, if you don't mind. I know this is
no problem.
Riveting radio for everybody listening to this, but it just happens when you talk for a living. Sometimes this happens.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and again, not like the Coliseum. It was this, Taj Mahal of sports buildings, because it never really was. And I hate using the word dump. When people talk about when old stadiums or arenas get replaced by new ones, it was a dump, but it was our dump. So that's kind of how I feel about the building. It was never really this magnificent edifice, but it was home. It was loud,
and it was ours.
And I was hooked that first night. And Steve, my dad lost the ticket stubs on our way home.
Oh.
And I I have a tremendous amount of ticket stubs.
I was just going to say that. I know you, and I know that that's one of your things. You got bags full of them from way back.
Scrapbooks. Of course, there's not a lot of ticket stubs these days with mobile ticketing, but I always was upset. There's a few ticket stubs in my collection that I'm missing, and it still bothers me. My dad took me to Game 1 of the '77 World Series, Yankees and Dodgers, and a graphic artist friend of mine recreated the ticket for me, so I have a ticket stub, so to speak. It always bothered me that we didn't have that ticket stub for my first Islander game, and during the pandemic, obviously there were no games going on until teams came back to play in the bubble. So I was bored one day, and I said to myself, I'm going to start doing something on social media to get everybody connected again, at least having some kind of sports. So I decided every day on Facebook and Twitter I was going to post a ticket stub or multiple ticket stubs or press credentials from my career. And it bothered me when I wanted to post that ticket stub about my first Islanders game. So I just started scouring on eBay and things like that. I never had a program from that game, so I thought maybe on some off chance I'd be able to find something from that game. And one day, Steve, this was my father looking down on me from heaven. May he rest in peace. This was the hockey gods looking down on me. I go into eBay one day and I type Island Barons 19.
What happened?
Do you still have me there?
Okay, we got you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It must be this thing. Go ahead. We'll edit it out. It's all good.
Yeah. Okay. So there I am typing one day, Islanders Barons 1978, and Steve pops up ticket stub, Islanders Cleveland Barons 1978, January 7th. Now, I couldn't care less where the seat was. I'm like, it was $5, and I'm like, I have to have a ticket stub. So the ticket stub was in section 309, which was in the corner. And I remember we were in the 300s, in the upper right corner. And if I looked at 309 on the seating chart, and it was a right corner. I don't remember if that was the same right corner that we sat in, or was it the other side, maybe closer to 327, 328 over there. Didn't matter. I didn't really care. I had a ticket.
You had it. It didn't matter. You got the ticket. And I remember that. I remember the posts that you were putting up. And I remember when you found that. And I said, this guy just got gold. He probably paid whatever it was. You said $5.
$5,
probably
$6
with ticket, right?
Yeah. It's like, who the hell would want to buy an Islanders Cleveland Barons ticket stub? Some lunatic. I could imagine the guy that was selling it saying, I can't believe somebody wanted to buy this stupid ticket stub.
Yeah. And he's like, wow, I don't even know why would I even put this thing up there? But then, you never know. There's a guy out there who wants it. I know you have one other very special ticket that we've talked about. We'll get to that before the show is over, but I hope people stick around because it's a really cool story. Moving forward, though, to the current day, I mean, we know the Islanders have such a long history, and we could stand here for hours. I know you don't have the time, but let's fast forward to your point of view on this, just generally speaking, on this current Islanders season, going into the Four Nations break, and then these last few games coming out. What did you see at the start? They had their troubles a couple of months into the season, to the point where the fans were really kind of like, hey, what are we doing here? When are we going to see some changes? Then they got a nice 7-game winning streak, lost a couple of games going into the break. And, hey, the last 10 games, not too bad. Hopefully we can get off to a good start coming out of the break. That hasn't happened yet. But what's your opinion overall of this season?
Well, obviously to me, it's obviously been frustrating, disappointing from an Islanders perspective because, coming off of, back-to-back trips to the playoffs, you'd like to think that this was, and I felt before the season started, especially with a couple of the things that Lou did tinker with the roster, I thought this was a playoff team. I really did coming into the season. And look, they still might be, but I think we have really seen over the last couple of weeks that really, I think the reality has to start to hit this franchise right in the face that they have probably gone as far as they could go with this group. And remember, again, it's 3-4 years removed from back-to-back trips to the semifinals. And listen, a lot of credit of that goes to Lou for putting that team together. A lot of credit goes to Barry Trotz for the work he did with that team, and not a whole lot of offense on those two teams. But
his system worked so well.
Right, and that's a big reason why they went to the semifinals 2 years in a row. Right. But I think when you look at this group, I mean, even if Matt Barzal, not just Barzal, it's not a group that you can latch on. Even if they squeeze into the playoffs, what could you possibly expect? Sometimes you think a team can sneak into the playoffs, and if they catch fire, they can they can go a long way. I just don't see that with this group, and I really think I started to go back in the other direction during the 7-game winning streak. I'm like, maybe this team's caught a little fire. I will say this. One thing that Patrick Waugh says about this team every single day, and I agree with him 100%, this team is resilient. They've got guys that have gone down with injuries. They've signed these guys, whether it's a Boquist or, whatever. These guys have come in. They've helped. They've chipped in. They've all done yeoman's work in trying to keep this thing afloat. But look, I just think when you look at this roster, this is not a roster that can go deep into the playoffs. It just isn't. Could they get in the playoffs? Yeah, I think they could. But
but how far could they go with what they've got?
Right.
Which would lead me to my next question with you on your point of view. Obviously, the trade deadline's looming, right? And you know as well as I do, and you probably share this opinion, that the Islanders need a couple of significant additions to get them to the playoffs, but not just to get there and bounce, but to get there and maybe move on and go far, even if we could. Do you have an opinion on, what's your opinion as far as, do you think Lou Lamoriello is positioned to make a move or not, or to stand pat? What are your opinions as far as the trade deadline is looming? What do you think Lou is thinking right now? I know we're all thinking we think we know, but
Steve, I got to think that Lou is thinking that he's getting up there, and he's probably can see the end of the line coming, whether it's this year or next year. And I don't think Lou is in the business or has the interest in rebuilding this team. I think if it was up to him, he'd like to be a buyer. I just don't think that's the right thing to do. I think the right thing for this team to do right now is sell some of the assets and reload and get some younger players. It would actually really disgust me. I don't know if disgust is the right word. It would be very, very stunning to see Brock Nelson wearing another jersey. But I think you have to take into account where this franchise is and where they need to get to. And if you can bring back a player that can help you right away, if you can bring back a prospect and you can bring back a first-round draft pick, I think you got to make that trade. You can always bring Brock Nelson back after the season if he wants to come back. I just don't think they can let the same thing happen with Brock that would happen with John Tavares. They thought they had a real good shot at retaining him. In this case, I would really right now. I would consider trading him. I would consider trading Kyle Palmieri. It comes back to the point where what's the benefit aside from ownership getting 2 full houses for games 3 and 4 in the first round? What is the benefit of this team making the playoffs? I mean, they're not going anywhere. So I
thought we've always needed just a couple of additions, but now that was coming out of that second semifinal loss to Tampa Bay, and I beat it like a broken drum now. Ray's ears are probably bleeding right now because I'm saying it again. Their power play has been their Achilles heel, even in that playoff series. They were like 1 for 18 or 1 for 19.
Right.
They never added to that team. Now those guys that have remained are older, 4 or 5 years older. There's other guys that have come and gone. They haven't made that much of an impact. You really need to have that sniper up front and that quarterback on D, and we haven't had that. Dobson, great to have, but he's not that guy. And everybody that we have up front, even Bo Horvat, who I love, I think he's probably one of the best guys on the team.
Yeah.
And I hope they don't get rid of him. But I'm just saying, and I don't think they would. But what I'm saying in that regard, they need to add to that mix. You may have to get rid of a couple of guys, maybe a Pajot, because they're top heavy. They're getting older when it comes to cap hits. They're going to have to make a lot of strategic moves as well as tactical moves here.
Yeah, listen. You mentioned Pajot. I think he's definitely a guy that can help a team that's in contention. And look, when you are around a team, especially a team that you root for, it's kind of tough to talk about something like this. But I have so much respect and affection for Anders Lee, who stepped in after Tavares left and became a great captain, and he has always been a great leader on and off the ice. And the work that he does with Jam Cancer in the Can, and I've got a personal attachment to that because my older son Bradley did his bar mitzvah project with Anders Lee's Jam Cancer in the Can. So,
wow.
I mean, Anders Lee, it means a lot to me and to my family. But he also could be one of those guys where, if you can get something back for him, I think you really have to start thinking about ripping this thing down to its core. And I'm just not sure Lou is going to be of that mentality. I think Lou is going to want to add to it, and I think it could set the team back even more if they just keep deciding to try and add. I was talking to somebody yesterday about the Islanders situation, and you ever see the movie My Cousin Vinny?
Sure.
Okay, so you remember when Marissa Tomei's character is on the stand in the courtroom, and she's talking to the jury about the tires and everything. It's like, for anybody whoever has had got stuck in the mud in Alabama and your tires are going around and around and around, like something along those effects. Like that's how I feel like the Islanders are right now. I feel like they're stuck in the mud with their tires going around and around and not going anywhere. So the most important part of clearing roster spots is that you do have this next generation of players that are going to be ready to play in a year or two. I mean, everybody, if you're an Islanders fan or you follow the NHL, you see what Cole Eiserman has done with the USA program and what he's doing in college right now. And I remember speaking to his junior coach last year, right after the Islanders drafted him, and he said at the time he thinks he's 1 year away, maybe two. I think that might be accelerated right now because I can see he's having such a good season that maybe after the season is over, I could see him turning pro and maybe he finishes out the season in Bridgeport or maybe he gets a cup of coffee with the Islanders at the end of the year. But you got to make some room for him. There's some guys at Bridgeport, even though Bridgeport is not having a great season. I mean, you have a couple of guys there that at least warrant, getting a look with the big club. There's players in juniors and in college right now. Danny Nelson is another guy that you have to keep your eye on. So I think, and again, maybe I'm speaking out of context here as far as other Islander fans are concerned, I think Islander fans would be more than okay with a rebuild, but I don't know if Lou Lamoriello, with all due respect to him and his Hall of Fame career, I don't know if he's the right person to do the rebuild because he's up over 80 years old already, and I don't think he'd be around when a rebuild would
take fruit. Yeah.
I don't mean he's not going to be alive. I'm just saying.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
The general manager if this team goes into a full rebuild, he's not going to be the general manager when the team is going to start to reap all the benefits of that. So, right. I really think that Scott Malkin and John Ledecky really have to take a deep dive into where this franchise is because you're starting to see a lot of empty seats in the building. You're starting to see fans turn on the team on social media.
Yes.
Look, the Rangers, who have one of the most passionate fan bases in all of sports, the Rangers went to their fans a few years back and wrote a letter to them and said, hey, the right way to do this is to rip this down and start over. And the fans had no problem with it because they were tired of seeing their team not make the playoffs every year and stumble. And what happened? Well, they got a team that became a Stanley Cup contender. So I think if you were the Islanders, I think you'd have an understanding fan base if you did that. I know I would, and I think I can speak for yourself because I think we both want what's best for the franchise, and to me, what's best for the franchise right now is to rip it apart and start over.
Well, look, I totally get that, and who knows, that could work. I'm more in the camp of let's get off some of these top heavy older guys, big salary guys. Whether you bring in some younger guys, draft picks or blue chips for them as the older guys help other teams down the stretch, and then bring in maybe some significant younger players or make room so you can make significant free agent signings over the summer. I'm okay with that too, but I totally get your point. What I would really love, and I know it's not going to happen, but I say it because Lamoriello is a Hall of Fame GM and hockey guy. You remember as well as I do when LaFontaine and Pat LaFontaine and Brent Sutter were having their problems with the team and needed to be moved. And Bill Torrey's last big push for the Islanders before he left for Florida, he brought back like 7 guys for those 2 guys and some throw-ins, and we went from down in the dumps to the semis in a few months. Right. So I would like to see something like that, where you get some significant guys up at the big club and, your happy medium where you can get some blue chips or some picks back after we've lost so many of them. But you definitely make a good point. But as we're moving along, I know you got to get back and we only got a certain amount of time here. Yeah. I want to touch base on that before we wrap it up, that ticket situation that just came up. We'll do that real quick and then we'll get to the arena football stuff.
Yeah, so last year, I'm sitting in the press box at an Islander game next to my good friend Alan Creta, who's a long-standing, member of the hockey writing group there, and I've always seen him at games. And he goes back a long way. He was actually an intern for Stan Fischler many, many years ago, and got his start in sports. We always seem to wind up sitting next to each other at Islander games. And he said to me one night, you can't tell this to anybody, but I'm writing a book with Ken Morrow. It's going to be Ken Morrow's story. I'm like, wow, I can't wait to read that. So he would give me some updates on what was going on. And I'm at another game and he said, we're going to have this section that's just about, game 5 against the Rangers or the overtime goals. I'm not really sure exactly how he phrased it. And we're going to have this like center section with pictures. But I would love to have a ticket stub from game 5 against the Rangers in 1984. And I said, you know what? I'm your solution guy right here because I was at that game and I have the ticket stub. So I brought it up, and going back to when I was posting all those ticket stubs during the pandemic, I went to Facebook, I searched it, I found it. I said, how does this look? And he's like, can you like text that picture to me? So I saved the picture, I sent it to him. 2 seconds later, he sends it to Ken Morrow. And Ken Morrow's like, oh my God, we found the ticket stub from that game. So, at the book event earlier this week, I got a copy of the book, and sure enough, right there in the middle is my ticket stub with credit to me. Ken Morrow was actually on my podcast during the week, thanked me profusely for that little addition to the book. And so when I went to the book event, and they gave everybody the book there on Monday night at John Ledecky's Manhattan offices. So there's when someone signs a book that they've written, there's like a big page at the beginning where they usually autograph the book. So Ken Morrow was off with some other people, so I went up to Alan. I said, you signed the book for me. Steve, I'm telling you, he wrote like War and Peace on this autograph to me. Like he's like, thank you for all the years of support and being a great friend and always like blah, 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 on. And he took up the whole page. I'm like, where's Ken Morrow going to sign the page?
That's awesome.
So I flipped to the middle. I'm like, just so happens where my ticket stub is a nice big white open space there. I'm like, you know what? That probably would have been the better place to get him to sign it anyway. So
right.
And he signed it. You probably have seen this on social media.
Yes, I saw it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, to Peter, thanks for the stub, Ken Morrow. How cool was that?
That's great.
Yep.
So from there, that's awesome. And I know that'll be with you two guys forever, every time you see each other from now on. But Pete, the hockey fan, the broadcaster, I know you're a big Jet fan, and we go back and forth on our miseries with that, but we'll save that for another day. but you are now in the football world, brother. You are an arena football GM of the New York Dragons. Tell us in a few minutes how that came about and how did you wind up being the GM?
I have no idea. I don't know how this happened. Just kidding. So, as you know, Steve, the original New York Dragons back in the day, I spent 8 years as their radio announcer, and I always wondered, could I ever run a team? I always thought about it. It was kind of like a dream job. Like, can I run an arena football team? Because I fell in love with the sport so much, and it was 17 years since the Dragons last played in 2008. In December, I get a call from somebody who used to work in the old Arena Football League. He said, "Did you hear there's a team coming to the Coliseum?" I said, "No." They hooked me up with this guy. I became a consultant for the team. We launched the team in January. I was supposed to be like a PR person for them. They said, can you help us get people to come to the press conference? They wanted 40 or 50. I got 91 people showed up at that press conference. 5 minutes after the press conference, they said, "We're willing to overlook your lack of sales experience. You're the guy we want to be the general manager of this team." So I was offered that job 5 minutes after that first press conference. And it's been unbelievable. It's been like a dream come true to be able to run a sports team. And I've got one football decision to make, and that's to hire a coach. Everything else comes down to, sales and marketing, season tickets, corporate partnerships. But we've built a really good front office so far. A lot of support from ownership, and I can't say kick off because there's no kicking in this new Entertainment Football Association. Everything is our place from scrimmage, but our season starts June 7th in Danbury, June 14th, the home opener at the Coliseum. And I'm so happy the building is still up. I'm so happy to call that place my office now. And
that's Steve, awesome.
I'll close my thought with this. It's been a long time since the championship banner has been hung in the Nassau Coliseum. We have to go back to 1983. And I'm not division champions or anything, league champions. I want to hang a banner in the Coliseum next June.
Oh, man, that would be awesome. I'm going to be a Dragons fan. I hope everybody out there, hey, tell us how to get tickets. Log on and then tell us how to reach you on social media for anybody who's listening and is interested.
So on X/Twitter at Schwartz Sports, on Instagram it's Peter Schwartz Sports. So our website is www.nydragonsfootball.com. You can go on there. We're selling season tickets and group tickets right now. Individual tickets will go on sale at some point, but there's a form to fill out where you can get more information on that. Season tickets are doing really well right now. We're building up corporate partnerships, and we're going to hire a head coach on March 25th. We're going to announce who our coach is. And
I know you're looking for Long Island guys to play and to be part of the coaching staff, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
so I wish you a lot of luck with that too.
Our head coach will be a Long Island high school head football coach, and the vision is to have most, if not all, of the 18 roster spots be former Long Island high school and college players. So maybe it's not over for the Ellers family. Maybe we can get one of the Ellers boys on the team.
I may even show up. Never know. I used to play in high school so much. For taking the time out of your crazy schedule. It was great having you on. Obviously, we hope to have you on again. And I know I'll see you out there. And if not, we'll be going back and forth on the social media platforms together. And I just want to say thanks a lot for coming on. Great having you. We're doing a Zoom thing here, so it's great seeing you too.
Yes. Maybe I'll see it like ShopRite or Target or something like that.
That's always possible.
Yeah, take it easy.
Take care, brother.